There's something profoundly isolating about being chronically underestimated by the people who are supposed to know you best. You develop a thick skin, certainly, but you also cultivate something more valuable: the ability to observe without being observed, to listen without revealing, to exist in plain sight while remaining fundamentally invisible. My name is Daniel Rivera. I'm 32 years old, and for the better part of the last decade, I've been the walking punchline of family gatherings, the cautionary tale parents tell their ambitious children, the living embodiment of wasted potential. While my brother Tyler carved out an impressive career in commercial real estate, closing million-dollar deals and posting carefully curated success stories across every social media platform imaginable, I supposedly floundered through an endless parade of mundane government positions that my family couldn't comprehend and frankly didn't care to understand. The narrative was set early and repeated often. Tyler was the golden child, the achiever, the one who made something of himself. I was the disappointment, the underachiever, the one who settled for mediocrity. Still pushing those papers down at that federal building? Dad would ask during Thanksgiving dinner, his disappointment barely concealed behind a thin veneer of paternal concern. The question was always phrased the same way, as if repetition might somehow shame me into a career change. Daniel works for some government department, Mom would explain to distant relatives and family friends, her apologetic tone suggesting she was announcing a terminal diagnosis rather than my occupation, something involving financial regulations and banking compliance. We don't really understand what he does all day. It's all very technical and boring. Tyler, my older brother by 4 years, never missed an opportunity to highlight the vast chasm between our respective life trajectories. Just closed escrow on a $4.2 million commercial property in downtown Phoenix, he'd announce casually over Sunday brunch, ensuring everyone within earshot absorbed the magnitude of his success. Meanwhile, Daniel's probably somewhere filing paperwork for his $62,000 government salary and pretending he's making a difference. The family would chuckle, sometimes uncomfortably but always predictably. I'd smile politely, offer a self-deprecating joke to ease the tension, and strategically redirect the conversation toward safer topics. It was a well-rehearsed dance we'd all perfected over the years. What they didn't know, what I couldn't tell them, due to the classified nature of my work and the strict confidentiality requirements of my position, was that I served as a senior criminal investigator with the Financial Crimes Division of the United States Secret Service. My boring government job involved infiltrating sophisticated money laundering networks, dismantling international fraud syndicates, investigating complex embezzlement schemes involving hundreds of millions of dollars, and tracking financial crimes that crossed multiple state and international borders. My security clearance was several levels above what most civilians knew existed. The cases I'd worked had resulted in the prosecution and conviction of over 40 individuals involved in major financial crimes. My testimony had been instrumental in sending numerous white-collar criminals to federal prison for extended sentences. I'd worked undercover operations in 3 different countries. I'd collaborated with Interpol, the FBI's Financial Crimes Section, the Treasury Department's Office of Terrorism and Financial Intelligence, and various international law enforcement agencies, but I drove a 7-year-old Toyota Camry with 140,000 miles on it. I lived in a modest 2-bedroom apartment in Alexandria, Virginia, furnished primarily with items from IKEA and estate sales. I wore suits purchased from department store clearance racks and carried a briefcase I'd bought on sale 5 years ago. My watch was a $40 Timex. My phone was 2 generations behind the current model. My lifestyle screamed struggling government bureaucrat rather than elite federal investigator. This wasn't poverty or poor financial planning. It was operational necessity. When you investigate financial crimes at the highest levels, appearing wealthy attracts exactly the wrong kind of attention. Criminals notice patterns. They look for investigators who seem too successful, too flashy, too eager to display wealth. Living modestly wasn't just recommended for agents in my division. It was practically mandatory. High-profile wealth-compromised investigations, endangered undercover operations, and made you a potential target. So I embraced the role of unsuccessful, Boring Daniel Rivera, who couldn't quite get his life together, who never lived up to his potential, who existed in his brother's considerable shadow. It had been manageable, even somewhat amusing, until approximately 8 months ago when Tyler's behavior began shifting in subtle but noticeable ways. He'd always been competitive. That was nothing new. Sibling rivalry was practically encoded in our family DNA. But recently there'd emerged a new edge to his comments, a sharper cruelty, an almost desperate urgency to his constant reminders of my inadequacy. "Mom, seriously, don't lend Daniel any money," he'd announced loudly at our cousin's graduation party, his voice carrying across the backyard patio. "He's absolutely terrible with finances. Always has been. Remember when he got rejected for that basic credit card application 5 years ago? Some of us understand money management, and others—" He'd trailed off meaningfully, letting the implication hang in the air. I'd noticed other changes too, details that might seem insignificant individually, but formed a concerning pattern when viewed collectively. Tyler had purchased a brand new Range Rover Sport, a vehicle with a base price around $85,000. Designer luggage from Toomey began appearing in his social media posts. He'd mentioned expanding his investment portfolio, diversifying into cryptocurrency, and exploring international real estate opportunities. His lifestyle inflation seemed dramatic, even accounting for success in commercial real estate. For someone who'd been complaining about student loan debt and business expenses just 14 months earlier, Tyler appeared to have discovered a significant and sudden cash infusion. But I'd been deeply embedded in a major investigation at the time, a multi-state cryptocurrency pyramid scheme that had defrauded thousands of victims of approximately $340 million, and I simply didn't have the mental bandwidth to analyze my brother's finances in detail. I assumed he'd landed some major commission or signed a particularly lucrative deal. His industry was volatile. Big paydays happened. I should have paid closer attention. I should have trusted my investigative instincts even when it involved family. I should have recognized the warning, signs that were obvious in retrospect. The text message arrived on a Thursday afternoon while I was in an operations briefing about a sophisticated identity theft ring we'd been tracking across 7 states for nearly 11 months. The message was from Mom, characteristically brief and cryptic. "Family dinner this Sunday. Your father has something important to announce. Everyone needs to be there. No excuses, I almost declined." Sunday was my only guaranteed day off, and spending it enduring Tyler's commentary on my failed career trajectory wasn't exactly my idea of relaxation. I had case files to review, reports to write, and an upcoming testimony to prepare for. But Dad's announcements were typically significant: retirement plans, health issues, major financial decisions. These weren't casual gatherings he'd call lightly. I responded simply, "I'll be there." Sunday dinner at my parents' house in Scottsdale, Arizona, was the same elaborate production it had always been. Mom's formal dining room seated 14 people comfortably, and she utilized every available inch when hosting family gatherings. The expensive china inherited from her mother came out, along with crystal wine glasses that required hand-washing and linen napkins that needed professional cleaning. The meal itself was always an ambitious undertaking: multiple courses, complex recipes, elaborate presentation. Tyler arrived precisely 15 minutes late, his timing calculated to ensure everyone was already assembled and waiting. He pulled up in his new Range Rover, parking prominently in the driveway where everyone could admire it through the front windows. He wore what I recognized as a Canali suit, easily. 2000 and carried himself with the exaggerated confidence of someone determined to prove their success to every person in the room. "Sorry I'm late," he announced, not sounding remotely sorry. Conference call ran long. "International clients, different time zones, you know how it is?" He kissed Mom's cheek perfunctorily. "Something smells incredible. Is that the rosemary lamb?" "It is," Mom confirmed, beaming at his recognition. "Your favorite." "Daniel," Tyler acknowledged me with a slight nod as he poured himself a generous glass of red wine. "Still working at that government building downtown?" "Still there," I confirmed neutrally, taking my usual seat at the far end of the table. the position that had somehow become mine over the years. Must be nice having all that job security, Tyler continued, his tone suggesting that job security was something only failures valued. I prefer the excitement of commission-based work, personally. The risk-reward dynamic. But I suppose steady paychecks work for some people. Before I could respond, not that I intended to, Dad cleared his throat authoritatively. Before we begin eating, I need to discuss something important with everyone. The room quieted immediately. Dad's serious tone commanded attention. Tyler's eyes sharpened with interest. His wine glass paused halfway to his lips. This sounds significant. Your mother and I have been working with our estate attorney, Dad began, his voice measured and formal. We're updating our will, restructuring our assets, establishing trusts for our grandchildren, and ensuring everything is properly organized and legally sound. Estate planning, Tyler interjected smoothly. Smart move. I've been telling you both for years that you needed to get this handled professionally. We want everything to be fair, Mom added, glancing between Tyler and me. Equal distribution between both of you boys, with specific provisions for healthcare expenses and long-term care if needed. Fair is certainly important, Tyler agreed quickly, leaning forward slightly. Though obviously individual contributions to the family should be considered. Some of us have been more financially successful than others, more capable of providing support if you needed it. The comment hung in the air, its implication unmistakable. I said nothing, simply reached for my water glass. The division will be equal regardless of income, Dad said firmly, a slight edge entering his voice. But there are some financial realities we need to discuss as a family. Medical expenses, potential long-term care costs, insurance considerations. Dinner proceeded along familiar lines. Tyler dominated the conversation with increasingly elaborate stories about his commercial real estate deals, his investment strategies, his business acumen. My aunt and uncle asked polite questions. My cousins made appropriately impressed sounds. Mom beamed with pride at her successful son. I ate quietly, contributed when directly addressed, and let my mind drift to the cryptocurrency case that was approaching its critical phase. We were days away from simultaneous arrests across 4 states. Then, just as Mom began clearing the main course plates to make room for dessert, Tyler's phone buzzed insistently on the table. He glanced at the screen, his expression shifting to something I couldn't quite identify, satisfaction mixed with something darker. He looked directly at me, his smile predatory. Actually, he said slowly, his voice dripping with barely concealed satisfaction, speaking of financial responsibility and success, I have something interesting to share with everyone. The table fell silent. Even the clinking of dishes stopped. Daniel, Tyler continued, addressing me directly, I want to thank you for being such an inspiration to me over the years. I looked up from my plate, meeting his gaze. An inspiration? Absolutely, he confirmed, his smile widening. You've inspired me to be more aggressive with financial opportunities, to not let silly things like hesitation or excessive caution hold me back from achieving my goals. He paused dramatically, ensuring he had everyone's complete attention. So I used your identity to secure a $95,000 personal loan 6 weeks ago. The approval came through beautifully. Your credit score was actually much better than I anticipated. The words seemed to echo in the sudden silence. For a moment, I genuinely wasn't sure I'd heard him correctly. What did you just say? I asked quietly. A $95,000 personal loan, Tyler repeated clearly, enunciating each word with obvious enjoyment. In your name. From your credit union, actually. They approved it almost immediately once I submitted the application. Your credit history is surprisingly solid for someone who supposedly struggles financially. Tyler, Dad said slowly, his fork frozen halfway to his mouth. What exactly are you talking about? Oh, don't look so shocked, Tyler waved dismissively. It's not a big deal. I'm making the payments. Well, most of them anyway. Daniel won't even notice the impact. It's not like he actually monitors his credit reports regularly. He probably doesn't even understand how credit scoring works, my aunt gasped audibly. My uncle set down his wine glass with a sharp clink. You committed identity theft, I said, keeping my voice perfectly level and emotionless. You fraudulently obtained a loan using my personal information without authorization or consent. That's identity theft under federal law. Tyler laughed, the sound harsh and mocking. Identity theft? Don't be so dramatic. It's not theft when it's family. I needed capital quickly for a time-sensitive investment opportunity, and your credit was just sitting there completely unused. If anything, I'm doing you a favor, building your credit history, adding to your loan portfolio. It's a federal crime, I said flatly. And what exactly are you going to do about it? Tyler leaned back in his chair, supremely confident. Report your own brother? Take me to court? You can't even afford a decent lawyer on your pathetic government salary, Daniel. Let's be realistic here. Tyler, honey, Mom interjected nervously. Maybe you should have asked Daniel first. Asked? Tyler interrupted sharply. Why would I ask? He would have said no, and the opportunity would have passed. This is what successful people do, Mom. We make bold decisions. We take calculated risks. We don't wait around for permission or approval. You forged my signature on legal documents, I continued calmly. You falsified loan applications. You committed wire fraud when the funds were transferred. You violated multiple federal banking regulations. Listen to you, Tyler mocked. Federal banking regulations. Wire fraud. You sound like you're reading from some government manual. This is a family matter, Daniel. And frankly, I contribute far more to this family's success and reputation than you ever have. Consider it a family loan that I took the initiative to arrange independently. Without his knowledge or consent, my uncle said quietly, his face pale. Tyler, that's seriously illegal. It's smart, Tyler corrected sharply. It's resourceful. It's what winners do instead of sitting around following rules that hold them back. He pulled out his phone and navigated to what appeared to be a banking app. See? The loan is properly documented in Daniel's name. The funds were transferred to my verified business investment account. Everything is traceable to legitimate business purposes. I even have signed documents showing Daniel agreed to co-sign the loan. He held up the phone, showing what appeared to be a scanned document with a signature. Documents with a signature that matches his perfectly, Tyler continued smugly. I was very thorough. You forged federal banking documents, I said quietly. That's an additional felony. I created an opportunity, Tyler corrected impatiently. Something you've never understood, Daniel. You've spent your entire life playing it safe, following every rule, staying small and insignificant. I take risks. I make things happen. Sometimes that requires being creative with available resources. Dad's face had gone pale. Tyler, if you needed money... I didn't need charity, Tyler snapped. I needed capital, and Daniel's excellent credit rating was available. It's not like he was using it for anything important. He lives in that depressing apartment, drives that embarrassing old car, wears those cheap suits. His credit was wasted on him. He turned back to me, his expression challenging. Seriously, Daniel, when was the last time you even checked your credit score? Do you even know how to access your credit reports? Do you understand how any of this works? The truth was, I checked my credit reports twice weekly. As part of my work investigating identity theft and financial fraud, I monitored my own credit obsessively. I knew every account, every inquiry, every change. I'd seen the hard inquiry from Tyler's lender exactly 6 weeks ago. I'd watched the loan approval process. I'd observed the funds transfer. I'd documented 3 missed payments over the past 5 weeks, and I'd been systematically building a federal case. What are you going to do about it? Tyler pressed, his confidence absolute. Seriously, Daniel. You can't afford legal representation. You can't prove anything. And even if you somehow could, are you really going to drag your own brother through court over a loan that I'm mostly paying back? You said mostly paying back, I noted quietly. Which means you've already missed payments. Tyler's confidence flickered slightly. I may have been a few days late on 1 or 2 payments. The bank sent some automated reminders. It's not a big deal. The first missed payment was 5 weeks ago, I said evenly. The second was 3 weeks ago. The third was 8 days ago. Each missed payment has been reported to credit bureaus. Each one damages my credit score. Each one creates documentation of ongoing fraud. His expression shifted slightly. You're bluffing. You don't track that stuff. The loan was originated through Desert Valley Credit Union on September 3rd. I continued calmly. Initial amount, $95,000 at 8.9% APR. First payment due October 1st. That payment was 16 days late. Second payment due November 1st, 22 days late. Third payment due December 1st, currently 8 days overdue. Tyler's face had gone rigid. Each late payment notification was sent to my mailing address, I added. I have all of them. I've documented everything. So what? Tyler recovered slightly. It's still your word against mine. And I have documents proving you agreed. Forged documents, I interrupted quietly. What can you possibly do about it? Tyler demanded again, but uncertainty had crept into his voice. That was an interesting question. An excellent question, actually. I pulled out my phone, typed a brief message, and hit send. Who are you texting? Tyler demanded, watching me. My team, I said simply. Tyler laughed, but it sounded forced. Your team? Your office colleagues. What are they going to do? File a complaint with HR. My phone buzzed immediately. Response from Assistant Director Rebecca Chen. Units en route. 8 to 12 minutes. Recording authorization confirmed. Proceed. Marcus, Mom said nervously. What's happening? Tyler, I said calmly. I need to read you your rights. He stared at me. My rights? What are you talking about? You have the right to remain silent, I began formally. Stop it, Tyler snapped. This isn't funny. You're not a cop. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Daniel, stop playing games. Tyler's voice rose sharply. You have the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be provided for you. I don't need a fucking attorney, Tyler shouted. You're not law enforcement. You're a paper pusher at some boring government office. You're partially correct, I said calmly. I reached into my jacket and withdrew my credentials. Federal badge on one side, identification card on the other. I'm Senior Criminal Investigator Daniel Rivera, Financial Crimes Division, United States Secret Service. I specialize in identity theft, banking fraud, money laundering, and financial crimes investigation. The room went completely, utterly silent. Tyler's face drained of all color. That's not... You work a desk job. You file paperwork. I investigate complex financial crimes, I continued evenly. My current active caseload includes a 7-state identity theft ring, a $340 million cryptocurrency pyramid scheme, and as of 6 weeks ago, a personal case involving my own stolen identity. Daniel, Dad said slowly, standing up from the table, you're a federal agent? For 8 years, I confirmed. Since I was 24. I was recruited during graduate school by the Secret Service. They wanted someone with my financial analysis background, my forensic accounting skills, and my language capabilities. Language capabilities? Mom stammered. I speak Spanish, Mandarin, and Portuguese fluently, I said. Useful for international financial crimes investigations. You knew I studied languages. You just didn't know why. We thought it was just academic interest, Dad said weakly. It was training, I corrected, for complex investigations involving international fraud networks and money laundering operations. But you live in that apartment, Mom whispered. You drive that old car. You dress like someone who doesn't have money, I finished. It's operational security. Federal agents investigating financial crimes can't appear wealthy. It compromises our ability to work undercover, to blend into various environments, to be systematically underestimated by the criminals we're investigating. I looked at Tyler, whose hands were shaking slightly. Being underestimated, I continued quietly, is actually one of my most valuable assets in this line of work. Outside, I heard vehicles approaching. Multiple vehicles. Heavy vehicles. Tyler, I said formally. You've confessed to multiple federal crimes in front of 6 witnesses. You've detailed your methodology. You've admitted to forging documents. You've acknowledged missing loan payments. You've demonstrated clear criminal intent. I'm your brother, Tyler said, his voice cracking slightly. You can't. You wouldn't. That's exactly why I have to, I said quietly. You targeted a federal agent. You used family access to commit fraud. Those are aggravating factors under federal sentencing guidelines. The doorbell rang, loud and insistent. Dad walked to the door as if in a dream and opened it. 8 Secret Service agents stood on the porch, led by Assistant Director Rebecca Chen herself. She was in her early 50s, sharp-eyed and authoritative, wearing a dark windbreaker with U.S. Secret Service in large yellow letters across the back. Investigator Rivera. She nodded to me formally. Subject present? Seated at the table, I confirmed. He's been read his Miranda rights. He's made multiple incriminating statements in front of 6 witnesses, all documented. Tyler stood up, panicking. This is insane. Daniel, tell them this is a mistake. Tell them you're joking. Tyler James Rivera, Assistant Director Chen said formally. You are under arrest for federal banking fraud, aggravated identity theft, wire fraud, document forgery, and making false statements to a federally insured financial institution. She continued with the complete Miranda warning as 2 agents moved forward with handcuffs. Tyler struggled, his voice rising to a shout. This is my brother. You're supposed to protect family. How can you do this? You did this to yourself, I said quietly. I'm just documenting it. As they led Tyler out in handcuffs, still shouting about family loyalty and betrayal, Assistant Director Chen turned to my family. We'll need official statements from everyone who witnessed the confession, she said formally. Multiple witnesses heard Mr. Rivera admit to identity theft and banking fraud. I heard everything, my uncle said, his voice steady despite his pale face. He detailed the entire fraud. He admitted to forging Daniel's signature. He seemed proud of what he'd done. Same, my aunt added quietly. He bragged about it. He showed no remorse whatsoever. Chen nodded approvingly. We'll take those statements officially. And Investigator Rivera, given the personal nature of this case, you'll need to recuse yourself from the active investigation effective immediately. Understood, I said. I've documented everything. The complete case file is ready for transfer to another investigator. Tyler was still screaming as they put him in the vehicle, his voice echoing across the quiet Scottsdale neighborhood. Neighbors had emerged from their houses. Someone was recording on their phone. Inside, my parents sat in stunned, devastated silence. How long? Mom finally asked. How long have you been a federal agent? 8 years, I repeated. I was recruited during my master's program in forensic accounting. The Secret Service has a financial crimes division that investigates complex fraud. They wanted someone with my specific skill set. And you couldn't tell us? Dad asked. The nature of my work requires discretion, I explained. Some of my investigations involve undercover operations. Some involve infiltrating criminal organizations. I can't have personal connections that could be exploited or compromised. So everything we thought about you, Mom trailed off, was wrong, I confirmed gently, but necessarily wrong. I needed you to believe I was unsuccessful. It made my work safer and more effective. Tyler committed a federal crime, Dad said slowly, as if testing the reality of the words. Multiple federal crimes, I corrected. Identity theft, banking fraud, wire fraud, document forgery. And based on his spending patterns, probably not for the first time. My phone buzzed. Message from Chen. Subject lawyering up. Requesting warrant for residence search. Need family consent for childhood home search? I looked at my parents. The Secret Service wants to search Tyler's room here. They can get a warrant, or you can provide consent. Your choice. What are they looking for? Dad asked. Evidence of other frauds, I said. If Tyler did this to me, he's probably done it to others. They'll look for documents, account statements, other people's personal information. Mom nodded slowly, tears streaming down her face. Search it. 30 minutes later, 2 forensic agents were carefully photographing and documenting Tyler's childhood bedroom, which he still used during family visits. They found a locked fireproof safe hidden in his closet. Investigator Rivera, one of them called. You should see this. Inside the safe were credit card statements in multiple names, loan applications, photocopies of driver's licenses and social security cards, bank account information, a systematic filing system for stolen identities. That's Dad's information, I said quietly, pointing to one folder. Mom's social security number, Uncle Ray's driver's license. My uncle went completely white. He stole from me too? The agent was photographing everything methodically. We're seeing at least 9 distinct victims here. Could be significantly more once we complete our analysis. 9 people, Dad whispered. Your son is a serial identity thief, I said as gently as possible. He's been running a sophisticated fraud operation, primarily targeting family members who he believed wouldn't monitor their credit reports carefully. But his job, Mom said weakly. His success, his lifestyle, probably financed entirely with stolen money, I finished. The forensic accounting team will audit his complete financial history. Every dollar will be traced, my phone rang. Assistant Director Chen, Investigator Rivera, subject is requesting to speak with you. Claims he wants to negotiate. No negotiations, I said immediately. He confessed to federal crimes in front of multiple witnesses. He showed no remorse. He's a serial fraudster who targeted a federal agent and his family. There's nothing to negotiate, understood. His attorney is pushing back hard, but we have overwhelming evidence. The confession alone is damning, combined with the physical evidence from his residence. Timeline for formal charges? U.S. Attorney wants to move fast. Formal indictment by Wednesday. Arraignment Friday. Given the evidence and the sophistication of his operation, they're requesting no bail. I hung up and looked at my parents. Tyler will be formally charged on Wednesday. He won't get bail. He'll remain in federal detention until trial. Federal detention, Mom whispered. He's going to jail. He committed serious federal crimes, I said. Multiple victims, sophisticated operation, clear criminal intent. He's a flight risk with access to financial resources. The court won't release him. Dad put his head in his hands. How did we not see this? He was careful, I said. He targeted people he thought wouldn't notice. He kept loan amounts below certain thresholds. He made enough payments to avoid immediate default flags. It was sophisticated fraud. Until he targeted you, my uncle said quietly. Until he targeted someone who actually understands financial crimes, I agreed, and made the critical mistake of bragging about it. The forensic team finished their search and left with boxes of evidence. My family sat among the ruins of dinner, dessert still on the table, completely untouched. What happens now? Mom asked. The investigation continues, I explained. The Secret Service will interview every victim, audit all of Tyler's financial accounts, trace every fraudulent transaction. The U.S. Attorney's Office will build their prosecution. Tyler will get a court-appointed attorney if he can't afford private counsel, which he probably can't since his assets will be frozen. Frozen? Dad asked. Proceeds of criminal activity, I said. Everything purchased with stolen money can be seized. The Range Rover, any jewelry or luxury items, investment accounts, all of it. My phone rang again. Unknown number. Investigator Rivera, this is Attorney David Morrison. I represent Tyler Rivera. My client would like to discuss a possible resolution. There's nothing to resolve, I said flatly. Your client confessed to multiple federal crimes in front of 6 witnesses. He's being prosecuted. He's your brother, Morrison pressed. Surely there's room for family consideration. I'm a federal investigator, I interrupted. Family consideration doesn't apply to criminal prosecution. Your client committed serious crimes. He'll face serious consequences. This conversation is over. I hung up. You really won't help him? Dad asked, staring at me. Would you want me to? I replied. Would you want federal agents ignoring crimes because they know the criminal personally? Would you want a justice system that operates based on family connections rather than evidence? He didn't answer. Tyler made choices, I continued. He chose to steal identities. He chose to forge documents. He chose to commit fraud. He chose to target his own family because he thought we were safe. Easy marks who wouldn't fight back. I paused, meeting Dad's eyes directly. He chose wrong. the investigation moved forward with the methodical precision characteristic of federal cases. Over the following weeks, the full scope of Tyler's fraud operation became clear. He'd stolen identities from 9 family members and 3 business associates. Total fraudulent loans and credit cards, $427,000. His legitimate annual income, approximately $108,000. His lifestyle expenses, over $220,000 annually. The gap had been funded entirely through fraud for nearly 3 years. The trial was scheduled for 6 months later. The evidence was overwhelming. Tyler's own recorded confession, the forged documents, the stolen identities, the sophisticated filing system, the spending patterns that proved deliberate, ongoing criminal activity. Tyler's attorney tried every angle. Family misunderstanding, miscommunication, temporary lapse in judgment. Nothing worked. The evidence was too strong, too clear, too well documented. The jury deliberated for 4 hours, guilty on all counts. Sentencing came 2 months later. I sat in the back of the courtroom, watching justice unfold exactly as it should. Tyler James Rivera, the judge said, her voice stern and uncompromising. You have been convicted of serious federal crimes. You targeted your own family members, people who trusted you implicitly, and exploited that trust for financial gain. You showed no remorse. In fact, you bragged about your crimes. You believed you were above consequences, too smart to be caught, too successful to face justice. Tyler stood in an orange jumpsuit, his expensive haircut grown out and unkempt, his usual confidence completely shattered. You were wrong, the judge continued. This court sentences you to 10 years in federal prison, followed by 5 years of supervised release. You will pay full restitution totaling $427,000 to your victims. All assets purchased with fraudulent funds will be seized and liquidated. 10 years. Tyler would be 43 when he was released. His career destroyed, his reputation ruined, his freedom gone. All because he thought his boring, unsuccessful brother couldn't fight back. As I left the courthouse, my phone buzzed. Message from Assistant Director Chen. Exemplary work on the Rivera case. Your documentation and evidence collection were flawless. The U.S. Attorney specifically noted the quality of your investigation. This will be reflected in your annual review. I responded simply, just doing my job, because that's exactly what it was. Not revenge, not family drama, not personal satisfaction, just a federal investigator, documenting criminal activity and protecting victims, even when the criminal was my brother. Especially when the criminal was my brother. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is simply let people reveal exactly who they are, document it thoroughly, and let justice take its course. Being underestimated isn't a weakness. It's an investigative advantage. And sometimes, the quietest person in the room is the most dangerous one there. Tyler learned that lesson the hard way, and justice, eventually, always balances the scales.